Welcome to the Elusive Truth with Rich and Larry. Well, clown world's at its finest right now, folks. The circus has ramped up like never seen before. I don't even know where to start. Just craziness. A couple of weeks ago, the assassination attempt on President Donald Trump. Crazy. I mean, what is going on in this world? What's so crazy about this situation? It seems like every day, even more information comes out against the Secret Service and their lax security operations, and it really points to, it looks like this was a a political hit from our own government. It's getting nuts. And just last week in Washington, D.C., the protest over Israel and the burning of American flags, it's gotten crazy, and nothing was done about it. They let it happen, meaning the police. I mean, there's more police in Washington, D.C. and than the entire world. I mean, there's more agencies down there, but they just let it happen. They let them desecrate their monuments and burn our flags. But to get a better insight of that, I have Benny Johnson, who was just there the other day, and he's here to report on Kamala Harris supporters just burned the American flags in D.C. Go check out that YouTube show. It's amazing. You got better visuals. Here's Benny Johnson reporting what he saw in the aftermath of that protest. Have a listen.
What's up, guys? We're in Washington, D.C. This is Union Station in the heart of Washington, D.C. Capitol Hill is just a block that way. We're like technically on Capitol Hill, the Supreme Court. Look at this beautiful building. But something incredible happened here last night outside of the typical, defecation and homeless camp and drug abuse that has been allowed to fester here for a very long time. Come here, let me show you something. It's like actually so sad. So your entire nation's capital has been turned into a festering, open cesspool and homeless encampment. But last night it really took quite a turn as Kamala Harris supporters decided to descend upon Washington, D.C. and burn American flags, light the American flags on fire. Of course, quite the difference as President Trump stands in front of an American flag, defiant, fighting for our nation, taking a bullet for our nation. Kamala Harris supporters are burning the American flag. Here you can see the park rangers who are trying to fix the flag right now. Members of Congress came here and hoisted up their own. The park rangers have told us that we can't enter this area. This is from all the power washing for all the graffiti that was written on that. That is the Liberty Bell. And what's really special about this is you can actually see the hammer and sickle there and end capitalism. You can see it sort of etched in. It's really convenient because the copper bell has this little, the green coating, and when you scratch through that, you can still see the graffiti even though it's been power washed off. You can see here on top of this memorial to Christopher Columbus, Zionists are bastards, and all cops are bastards, along with some other delightful messages that have been written. There comes down the flag officially that I believe members of Congress raised in order to try and, fix the flag. That is the proper size of a flag that's supposed to be on that pole, and they were all torched. They were all burned, so. Vote for Kamala. Come on, let me show you something. So we got open graffiti still, your classic Free Palestine, Genocide Joe, F Joe Biden, Free Gaza, Free Palestine. Okay, I commend Hamas. See, this is really funny because members of the Senate were saying that these were just protesters that didn't like genocide and they weren't actually Hamas supporters. This one's for you, Chris Murphy. I commend Hamas. Got it, bro. Let's keep going. Fenced in. I do think it's interesting. That how quickly the graffiti got cleaned up. It's funny. It's almost like it's election season, right? And they want to make sure that there's not the kind of iconography that's going to hurt Kamala Harris, since these were all Kamala Harris supporters. I think it's kind of funny because I remember when BLM was able to pretty much light the entire damn city on fire, burn down a church across from the White House, and libs like screamed bloody murder when Donald Trump cleared out the protesters. Yet when they're in charge, and this could potentially flip back around on them, where are the protesters? They're gone. And by the morning, they're power washing everything off. Remember, it was called violence. It was called literal violence when Donald Trump cleared out the protesters for BLM. Just to show you, give you some perspective of how close we are to the U.S. Capitol, please. This is the Capitol Dome. Of course, you are well aware that is the iconic U.S. Capitol, and this is the monument. So, you know, again, a city block, 2 city blocks maybe, that's how far away we are. Here we go. A nation led by Mohammed will not be defeated. Fags for Gaza. Just repeating the words that are currently being taken off the wall here. F. Netanyahu, take down the empire. Got it. All right. Stupid pig, oink, oink. There's this famous great saying. It goes like this. When somebody shows you who they are, believe them. You should absolutely believe it when these people tell you that they are Marxists, that they hate Jews, that they want to destroy all capitalism. That's the point here, all right? That's the ultimate purpose. As you can see, the American flag getting unfurled, refurled. Yeah, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them, okay? Like listen. They have, the graffiti says, we hate all cops, we hate Israel, we are communists, we are Marxists, we present as the hammer and sickle, and we're going to burn the American flag. All right? They're also very proudly Kamala Harris supporters, very excited about that. So I'm not exactly sure how you're gonna mesh those things. All right? Kamala the cop, Camilla the cop. We're not exactly certain, but we are certain of one thing, that even after this gets power washed off with a great expediency, again, my mind is blown. I spent all of BLM living in Washington, D.C., and the left loved leaving up terrorists, monuments, and all manner of graffiti and destruction to the city. When Trump was in office, they wanted it up. When Kamala is begging to get into office, in the most undemocratic way, by the way, they're getting that down as soon as possible. Get it down as quickly as possible. But there's one thing that'll be here in the morning, okay? Tomorrow morning and every morning, right over here. That's actually what's truly sad, is that no matter what they do to the graffiti, the homelessness, the drug addiction, the festering horrors that have befallen your great nation's capital will remain and will continue to remain until there is a change in the chair, okay? So remember, burning American flags equal a vote for Kamala.
I still just can't believe that they let this happen in D.C. Obviously, we're in a political race. It's election season, but this is all optics, and I'm sure they're going to try to blame President Trump on this. But clearly, this is Kamala Harris supporters, her type of people. Of course, this protest that took place and the burning of the flags didn't do anything to stop any wars or make anything change in Israel and Palestine. If anything, it's gotten worse. Here's Timcast. Today, Hamas leader assassinated in Iran. I mean, it's just getting worse over there, but all these yahoos over in America think they can protest and it's going to change anything. Not doing a darn thing. Have a listen. Timcast.
News broke that Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh was assassinated in Iran in what they're claiming is an airstrike. Iran is blaming Israel. Israel has said nothing. The U.S. denies involvement, but there was another Israeli airstrike on Hezbollah, killing Fuad Shakur, which is another individual responsible for the attacks on Israel. So if I just say many people believe, and I think the U.S. believes, Israel assassinated a Hamas leader Iranian ally who was in Iran, in Tehran, for the presidential inauguration. They assassinated a guy in Iran. Okay, so the question then becomes World War III, retaliation. Look, man, Iran's, I don't know, man. Maybe it's a bit dismissive of me, but I think Iran will do nothing. Nothing visible, at least. There's always the potential for cyber attacks and other forms of retaliation that are less visible. But, when it comes to that stuff, it's kind of like, what's the point, right? Now, the Ayatollahs vowed revenge, and there is fear that this will lead to an escalation of the war. But let's be real. The war is raging on. And it's not just Israel and Gaza. And that's the fascinating thing about the whole narrative. The narrative, of course, is always that it's just Israel and Gaza. But Lebanon, you've got Hezbollah, and you've got Iran deeply involved. This is expanding into a much larger war. You've got Iranian-backed proxy groups, militias. You've got Houthi rebels. The whole region is lighting up. Why? Man, we had a great conversation last night on Timcast IRL in the super chat portion when someone said they would rather have Kamala Harris if it meant Israel would suffer, or something to that effect. I mean, maybe it's a little crass for me to describe it that way. They said if it got rid of America's parasite, they would withstand 4 years of Kamala Harris. Yeah, Kamala Harris is the machine behind expanding this war in the Middle East and making everything crazier. It's no surprise that under Donald Trump, no new wars, and wars were going away. So it's fascinating to me that people think that they're going to get some kind of, I don't know, defunding of Israel under Kamala Harris. But talk about it being America last. I hate Israel so much that I want Kamala Harris to be president. It's just illogical nonsense. But we'll talk about this. A couple other stories. We'll take a look at the current election, who Kamala Harris's VP is going to be, and then we got a more cultural segment because we need them. Suicide booths. They're making them. They are quite lit. Futurama. I don't know how Futurama predicted this, but apparently there's a suicide booth and a woman is supposed to die in it. Medical assistance are dying, and she ran away. I wonder why. So let's talk about the news, my friends. Smash that like button. Subscribe to this channel.
Go watch Timcast on YouTube. You'll get a lot more information. It's an awesome show. Well, since we're talking about President Trump and the assassination, I believe it's going to be the Rubin Report. And he's going to talk about how Google's already censoring your Google inquiries, and they're not giving you the information. Here, have a listen. This is the Rubin Report. I'm telling you, the media is just as bad as they ever were. And now these tech companies and Google, they're definitely trying to change the election here. Have a listen.
Elon tweeted this out yesterday. It's a screenshot of Google search. And he wrote, wow, Google has a search ban on President Donald Trump, election interference. So if you put, and you should try this yourself, do not just take Elon Musk's word for it or my word for it. Maybe they're going to fix it today. We shall see. But if you start putting President Donald in, instead of it auto-populating to President Donald Trump, it automatically populates to President Donald Duck. I watched, I think, every episode of DuckTales when it was on the Disney afternoon in the early 90s, and I do not remember Donald Duck being president. It also then, the next search is about Ronald Reagan. Now check this out. This is from a random Twitter account called Naomi. Searches for Donald Trump, and you can see this. There's video playing here for those of you on the audio podcast. If you search Donald Trump, you get all news. This is from Google. You get all news about Kamala Harris. And guess what? It's all positive news about Kamala Harris. I'm shocked and appalled. Now check this out from Libs of TikTok. She wrote, Google needs to be hauled in front of Congress to answer for this. Orwellian. If you type in assassination attempt Trump, nothing auto-populates. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. They are changing the narrative in real time. They are rewriting history in real time. And we're seeing it now. But guys, let's roll down this road 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. You, person who saw the video of Donald Trump being shot when they've completely scrubbed that from the internet, And when the search results don't show it, you're going to be out there 20 years from now. I'm going to be 68 years old. And somebody's going to come up to me and go, what are you talking about? Donald Trump got shot. And I'm going to say, well, I saw the video. I know exactly where I was when it happened and blah, 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 blah. And they'll say, you're a liar. And that's where we will be at, because they will rewrite the reality right in front of our eyes. My friend Erin Wexler, who's been on the show many times, she had a great point with an image here. She wrote, why is it that when you Google Donald Trump, you get news about Kamala Harris, but when you Google Kamala Harris, you don't get news about Donald Trump? So look at that. She Googled President Donald Trump, and all the things that came up from Google's immediate search rankings were about Kamala Harris. Then she did the exact same thing about Kamala Harris, and all of the things were about, you're not going to believe it, Kamala Harris. Isn't that something?
The media, or the machine to call it, is definitely censoring our access to information, and they're painting their own picture. Think about it. Before the debate, or actually after the debate with President Trump and Joe Biden, Kamala Harris was like the least liked person in the government. She was at 14%? And then all of a sudden, Joe Biden drops out of the race and she's neck and neck with Donald Trump. Come on now. That is just absolutely nuts. All you have to do is just listen to Kamala, and you can tell that lady is evil, and she is only doing this for herself. And basically, others are telling her what to do. She can't think for herself. So with that, we're going to go back to Benny Johnson. And this is the Secret Service whistleblower. Like I said, every day more information is coming out. But apparently this ex-Secret Service officer predicts that another assassination attempt within 30 days. Just going over the absolute negligence in part of the Secret Service on protecting President Donald Trump. Here, have a listen. Benny Johnson.
What's up, guys? Your boy Benny. President Trump's life is in danger. Now, you could argue by just the man's sheer footprint, maybe some of the enemies he made as president, that President Trump is the most sought after and famous man on earth and would be potentially the biggest target walking the earth today. Maybe this side of Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, President Trump running for president again, the presumptive president of the United States of America, based on all available polling, you would assume that that man would be armed and protected to the teeth. But in fact, after being shot in the head just 17 days ago, too many failures to even count, but just off the top of my head, it was open space with no security, 80 yards from Trump. The shooter was allowed to pretty much do whatever he wanted, even though he'd been flagged for 2 hours from the Secret Service, and was able to shoot off shots, even though there was a sniper tower trained right on him. Who gave the stand down order? Oh, yeah, nobody gave any orders because local law enforcement couldn't even speak with the Secret Service. They can't even talk with each other. Secret Service didn't even show up to the security briefings. No drones allowed to fly overhead. No sniper positioned on the water tower, which is the highest point in the entire county. Other building rooftops not protected in the area. And that's how a bullet blew Trump's ear off a chunk of his ear. Blood splattered MAGA hat, blood all over his face. President Trump alive today because of divine intervention. I believe that wholly in my heart. How many times can you cheat to death, right? How much divine intervention can you lean upon? Well, don't put God to the test. But all I'm trying to say here is, since us mere mortals are funding the Secret Service, you'd assume that this agency would do everything in their power to protect Donald Trump, especially after the last few weeks of disaster. President Trump, of course, still having to face probably even more threats in light of how weak and how broken our Secret Service has projected itself. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have this. It's so much worse than you thought. Get a load of this. Attached to this now very insanely viral post on X by an excellent reporter named Susan Crabtree is a screenshot of an email, the contents of which I will read to you. But I need to explain to you why this email is so important. This email was sent by a Secret Service sniper who's had 20 years in the Secret Service and is also a former Marine. This is a man who's devoted his entire life to law enforcement and the protection of our country. This is a man who's the best of the best. I've spoken with a lot of snipers over the last couple of weeks. I have snipers in my direct family. At work as snipers in the armed services of the United States of America. Let me tell you what, Secret Service snipers are the best. They are the best there is. There is no one better. You can go look at the wall. Check the scoreboard. They got every trophy from every sniper competition. They win every time because they are so very good. This sniper speaks on behalf of himself and the other protective agents when he declares that the Secret Service intended and continues to intend to create the environment where Donald Trump will be killed. This is a whistleblower message from today. Get a load of this. Secret Service counter snipers sent an email Monday night to the entire uniformed division, not the agents, the leaders of the Secret Service, not speaking out until saying he will not stop speaking out until 5 high-level supervisors, one down, are either fired or removed from their current positions. The counter sniper also said the agency should expect another assassination attempt before November and complained that he is no longer proud to be a Secret Service sniper after leadership failed at the Trump rally. This agency needs to change, the letter writes. If not now, when? The next assassination? In 30 days? What does he know that we don't know? He's saying in 30 days, Donald Trump will be assassinated. Sadly, we have fallen short for years, the counter sniper lamented. We just look good doing it. I've conveyed these thoughts not only to my supervisors, but also to the training officers, only to be brushed off with those ideas, with those with less experience than me. The team I was once proud to be a part of, something I have continued, something now I have to hide as I moved on to the next chapter, the counter sniper continued. Who wants to hire a Secret Service counter sniper guy who failed? That's the public perception that I'm faced with. It's heart-wrenching. It's true. Is a stain I will not be able to cleanse. He continued with these 2 lines. The motto of the U.S. Secret Service, cover your ass. And every supervisor is doing that right now. The agency quickly deleted the email. A knowledgeable source told Real Clear Politics. Real Clear Politics is amazing. And Susan Crabtree is no crackpot. She's a great reporter. And so let's go ahead and have a look at this email. This is the email from the sniper saying effectively, we've exposed our inability to protect our leaders due to our leadership. The technicians who worked in Butler, Pennsylvania, did their job with their hands tied. Secret Service supervisors knew better, and the foot soldiers working made the best of a bad situation that resulted in civilian death, near miss of the protectee, and our technician shooting and killing the suspect. I know how many on the counter sniper teams, guys who sit on the roof and don't do much, but our responsibility and our mission is not about protecting an empty White House located at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. A little knock at Biden there. It's about preventing and stopping another JFK-style assassination, whatever city it may be. Sadly, for years, we have fallen short. We just got lucky. Wow. Incredible. This is amazing. And this guy has, this guy apparently has 3 decades of counter sniper experience, saying that he's not proud to be part of the Secret Service anymore. Some of us take our job and responsibility seriously, deadly serious. I may be overzealous, but after 7 years in the Marine Corps and then 20 plus years on the Secret Service counter sniper team, failure is not an option. We failed not because of our commitment to sense of dedication, but because our supervisors, our leadership knew better and thought our concerns were less important. Wow. Incredible. This whistleblower, their testimony was brought up today in the Secret Service hearing in the Senate. And this letter was asked about. We'll play you that clip in just a moment. Hear from Charlie Kirk. The reason why this is very important from Charlie is because I work with Turning Point USA. I love speaking at their events, right? We just have a friendly relationship and they invite me to go speak, okay? Love going and speaking at Turning Point events. President Trump speaks at these events all the time. I'm often in the room when President Trump is speaking, and it is electric. I was just backstage in Detroit, and President Trump walked in. We got to shake hands. It was awesome. President Trump spoke in Detroit at Turning Point, and we had a great time. It was amazing to see. Got to see his motorcade pull up backstage. It's awesome. Charlie Kirk has this to say. We've hosted Donald Trump dozens of times, and they have since 2017. Donald Trump's spoken at tons of Turning Point events. We hosted him again on Friday, this past Friday, just this past week. All right, 3 days ago. This past weekend was the most lax I have ever seen the security with U.S. Secret Service. My entire staff and events team agrees. Nothing felt improved. If anything, security was more porous. Not noticeable improvement since Butler. Instead, it seemed that even more laid back. I've wrestled with whether or not to voice these concerns publicly. I don't want to inspire some crazy attempt at something evil. But after reviewing the text messages from the Butler SWAT and hearing the additional concerns from my friend Bongino, Eli Crane, Corey Mills, and many others, I felt the need to say something publicly. We must keep President Trump safe. If that's augmenting his detail with private security or sounding the alarm here, my firsthand experience confirms that not nearly enough has been done, and there's not nearly enough urgency. There are brave and honorable agents in the Secret Service. Trump legitimacy needs more manpower around him now. I hope something changes, says Charlie, to this post getting thousands of reposts. Let's go ahead and refresh here. Thousands of reposts, 10,000 likes, 500 comments. Wow. How can security be getting worse after what happened? This is why I decided to say something publicly. I have no idea, says Charlie. Incredible. President Trump himself insinuating that this might have been an inside job and that they're sad that he's not dead. It's amazing. President Trump just posted this on Truth Social, a retruth on Truth Social. What did Christopher Wray know, and when did he know it? Here's the full post that President Trump reposted. If you want to know who ordered the assassination of Donald Trump, retruth. Yikes. Holy moly. Well, there it is, ladies and gentlemen. The failures of your federal government laid bare. No accountability. No accountability. No accountability. Here's Marsha Blackburn, Senator Marsha Blackburn, from the Senate hearing asking about this letter, and the now acting director of the Secret Service going, we're going to look into that. Okay. Hope they do it fast. And as ever, pray for President Trump. It's your boy Benny. Like, share, and subscribe. See ya.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to each of you for your patience and for being here today. Director Rowe, I want to come to you first because a counter sniper has decided to speak out about the culture at your agency, and I think it is very telling. And he sent an email, and I'm going to quote from that. If this agency needs to change, and if not now, when? The next assassination in 30 days? But here's what I want to talk with you about, because in this email, he says, and I'm quoting again, the motto of the USSS is CYA. And every supervisor is doing it now. That's the end of his quote. So you're the guy in charge. And you're one of those supervisors. You've been a career guy there at the Secret Service. The public has lost trust in the ability to execute the mission, to protect. And I want to know how you feel about the fact that employees in your agency are worried about covering their behind and not worried about protecting a former president.
Thank you, Senator. So I'm hurt by that email, but not in the way you think I'm saying it. I'm hurt because my people are hurting right now. We need them.
Then why did somebody delete the email?
I'll get back to you on that, Senator.
The agency deleted the email.
But may I address your question? And,
yes, please.
I will get back to you as to whether the email was deleted or not. My agency is hurting. Emotions are raw. I actually want to hear more from that UD officer, that technician. In his email, he referenced that he had spent time serving our nation as a United States Marine, that he is a 20-year professional of the Secret Service. I am committed to being a change agent, meaning I am committed to reviewing some of these things. I looked at the points in his email very quickly. I saw it as I was on my way over here this morning. I want to have further conversations, not only with him, but also the counter sniper supervisor.
If I may step back in, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So you want to talk with him. What about other whistleblowers? What about this culture? Are you going to allow these whistleblowers to speak out? Because it is troublesome if somebody went into the server and deleted that email. I would hope you will get to the bottom of that and be able to provide some answers. Because this is, as you have heard from both sides, this is a situation that cannot be allowed to happen again.
Yes, ma'am.
Ever. Mr. Abate, and am I saying your name properly? We've heard it pronounced 3 different ways today in the hearing.
Abate, Senator.
Abate. Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
You had mentioned a social media account that espoused anti-immigrant, anti-Semitic views, but you did not say what platform that was on and what the username was. And this is Crooks that we're discussing.
Yes, Senator, that's correct. I didn't want to comment on it because we haven't fully confirmed yet, and I thought that as soon as we confirm and certify,
Would
I
you
will
supply
provide
that?
to you.
And
Absolutely.
also the age at which he had those feelings. And then we understand that the Gab account is pro-immigration, pro-lockdown, leftist views. Is that accurate?
I haven't seen it directly, but I believe from what I've been told, that is accurate. With the Gab account, we're also, though that's been publicly revealed through the CIO and other things, we're still working to certify and verify that that's his account also. But it does have differing points of view, it would appear. Okay.
And what age and how fresh is that Gab account?
The Gab account, based on my recollection, the comments in there or the messaging is from about 2021, I believe.
Okay. And the other preceded that? Maybe he was age 14?
Yes, Senator. The other account that we talked about was in the 2019-2020 timeframe. So it would have been in the couple years right before the Gab
right
messaging.
Before that.
Yes.
Are there other accounts that you all are currently verifying and receiving information from?
We are. We've, as I mentioned, we've issued a bunch of legal process, and we're still awaiting returns from a number of the companies, to include other social media companies as well.
Okay. Well, my time has expired. Thank you for your patience today. Thank you for the information. We look forward to getting more information. And Director Rowe, we are going to hold you to being a change agent because things at the Secret Service absolutely have to change. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
What is going on? You would think after the attempted assassination that the Secret Service would beef up their security, even become more professional, and yet we're hearing that they're more lax and more porous. I'm telling you, alternate universe, folks, something has to change. And the worst thing is more and more information is coming out on a daily basis on how this was such a botched planning of a detail for the Secret Service. We're not Secret Service officers, but I'm telling you what, they do CYA. That's what they're supposed to do because they can't let anything happen to their protectees that they serve. What a world we live in. Stay tuned and watch daily. You're going to find more information about this assassination attempt. It just doesn't sit well at all. Next, we're going to go on to Kamala Harris. You know, the news has been saying that she is awesome. She's going to be the first black lady president, and she's raised billions of dollars for her campaign in record time. It's unbelievable. Fox News had a little segment of a pipeline worker that tears into lying Kamala Harris. So we're starting to get a little bit of what really is going on. But again, all you have to do is watch for yourself. You will see that Kamala, there's something wrong with the lady. Have a listen. This is Fox News.
And let's bring in Bugsy Allen. He's been on here before. He's made his living working on American pipelines. And we just think it's important for people to hear from the workers who actually do this kind of work and the situation that you've found yourselves in since that first day that Biden-Harris took over. Bugsy, how are things going now? How do you see it with her making this flip-flop?
Miss Dana, I can tell you right now, when that lady's lips are moving, she's lying. And it's simply because that one Democrat said, oh, she's all about the energy up there. No, it's not. A lot of the work boys that I work with, and men and women, we're thinking about jerking our 401ks just to try to live. But the price is going up. These people are not going to keep fracking because they're pushing electric cars. They're pushing their green ideology deal, and it's not going to work. It never will work. Oil and gas is going to be the driver of the United States of America. And she is a left-wing liberal, San Francisco, with the highest taxes. And why would anybody with any common horse sense that's a blue-collar worker want to even look at this woman?
Well, let me ask you this. If she were to change her position, then could you see people in Pennsylvania, working-class voters, saying that they would take her at her word? I know you're saying that you think that she's not telling the truth, and I hear you on that. But a lot of those workers up there they're desperate to have something happen. And I know what you said is also true in your own life, that you are wanting to make sure that you can at least feed your family. This is not about socking away extra money so you can buy a second home. You're trying to just live day to day.
Well, the thing about it is she's tied in with Biden. And here's the deal. Biden is a liar. Nobody's going to trust this with common horse sense, Miss Dana. Nobody is going to trust the Democratic Party. If they've got good common horse sense and they're a blue-collar working people, they're not going to trust them. They lie. Joseph R. Biden has been lying the whole time he's been in office, whenever you did see him.
Do you think, Bugsy, that the people that work in that do this kind of work that you do, like in another state, let's just talk about New Mexico, for example. Obviously, you're in Texas, but in New Mexico, for example, this is where that state has a lot of jobs. Do you hear that people are making energy an issue that they would vote on?
The thing about it is, down in New Mexico, the Permian Basin, it's all non-union. See, Biden's supposed to be union. Well, that's what I've been for 25 years as a union member. And the whole thing about it is, he's just all this union. He has hamstringed the pipeline industry in the unions. And it's terrible. It is terrible. And people, I'm telling you, Miss Dana, are hurting. And they see these prices going up. And it's simply because they have pushed this ideology about all kinds of electric cars and green energy. It's not going to work.
Yeah, it's coming. I think that it's like they inflated a balloon that is coming back down to earth. And as you said, we all need to have some common horse sense. I'm going to work on that today, Mr. Bugsy Allen.
Yeah, you do that, Miss Dana.
Thank you.
Do you have common horse sense? I guess a lot of people don't. Again, it's just, here's a good old boy from Texas saying like it is and trying to be real nice about it. So we want more Kamala Harris. So back to Fox News. Kamala Harris has failed as vice president over the border. Have a listen. It's all true. Can't hide from this one, Kamala. Fox News.
Kamala Harris's early record now under increased scrutiny as she becomes the presumptive nominee, namely the sanctuary city policies that she was championing when she was in California. In 2006, she was the DA. Kamala Harris said of San Francisco, quote, "We are a sanctuary city and we always will be." As state attorney general, Harris said, quote, "An undocumented immigrant is not a criminal." She maintained her lenient views on the issue throughout her time as senator, then in 2020 as a presidential candidate. Listen.
We've got to critically re-examine ICE and its role and the way that it is being administered and the work it is doing. And we need to probably think about starting from scratch.
I am opposed to any policy that would deny in our country any human being from access to public safety, public education, or public health, period. And if you look a little deeper, you're going to find even more sanctuary city controversies.
Take this, for instance. In 2008, she was the DA then, and she declined to seek the death penalty for Edwin Ramos, an illegal immigrant who killed a father and killed his 2 young sons, I think 17 and 20 years old. So in this case, the mother of those 2 boys and the widow of the man that was killed, she was pleading for the death penalty. But Kamala Harris kept her campaign promise, and she didn't allow that to happen. And Gavin Newsom changed the policy in that city, and the killer avoided authorities because it was against the city policy. All right, let's go to this one. This is Ronnie Aguilar, illegal immigrant from Honduras, 2007, set free after being found guilty of a federal assault. In 2008, this was found guilty in San Francisco, but then set free. The next year, murdered a 14-year-old. This 14-year-old was trying to return an iPad to his friend, was walking on the street, and then this killer comes up with a sword and almost decapitates him, was given sanctuary from deportation because of Kamala Harris's laws. Then you know this guy. This is the man who killed Kate Steinle in 2015 on that pier in San Francisco. And the senator, Kamala Harris at the time, she did not vote for Kate's law. And Kate's law would have increased penalties for illegals who repeatedly enter the U.S. So these are Kamala Harris's policies. Let's bring in Fox News contributor and former acting ICE director Tom Homan. He joins us now. Tom, what's your reaction to all of this?
It doesn't get worse. It doesn't get worse. Look, look at the damage she did as the Attorney General for the state of California. And think about the damage she will do as the president of the United States. Not only she supported sanctuary cities as the Attorney General of California and as United States Senator, let's remember she compared ICE to the KKK. She stood at the White House podium and slandered the men of the Horse Patrol and the Border Patrol, saying they were racist and they were whipping black people when anybody saw the video no, it wasn't true. And another thing I found last night, when she was the Attorney General of the state of California, she filed an amicus brief, a friend of the court brief, to the state of California, helping an illegal alien be admitted to the California bar to practice law. Get this, someone in the country illegally, she thought should practice law in the state of California. As the Attorney General from California, it doesn't get worse. This is, if you believe in border security, immigration enforcement, national security because of the open border, this is our worst nightmare, her being a president.
Tom, I mean, I don't understand this. And Donald Trump keeps saying he's running as the common sense president. Isn't it common sense? Why would you ever want someone that is a criminal and has murdered people, brutally murdered people, taken a dad and 2 sons from this mom, almost decapitated this 14-year-old? Why would she want them to stay in our country?
It's just incredible. I mean, I've met hundreds of angel moms and dads, and every story's sad. And me and you have talked about this before, Ansley. It's changed the person I am because I've heard so many of these heartbroken stories. I'm sickly tired of it. Now she's trying to change the story. She wasn't a border czar. Yeah. And she's now they're saying she's just looking at the root causes for Mexico and the 3 Central American countries. Okay, let's take her at that, even though it's a lie. Let's take her at that. Over 5 million illegal aliens from those 3 countries entered the United States while she was vice president. So how did she do? She didn't do very well. And with a total of 2 million gotaways on 11 million encounters, she has failed as a vice president. She has failed as a border czar. She can't run away from this. American people are smarter than this.
Can you imagine if you're a parent and you lose your child to an illegal immigrant? Your child is buried in the ground and the illegal immigrant is out and not deported. Thank you so much, Tom, for coming on with us.
Are you getting any common horse sense out of all this? I'm telling you, this border thing is way worse than they're letting anybody know. That brings up what's going on in Britain right now. It's the same thing that happened in Ireland with these immigrants stabbing children. It's getting crazy, and it looks like the citizens of these European countries, they've had enough of it. So here's Dr. Steve Turley. Britain erupting in chaos. This is all because of the immigration of these illegals. It's crazy, and it's all over the world, and it's only going to get worse here in the U.S. But here, have a listen.
On Monday of this week, citizens of the UK were utterly horrified by a brutal and shocking mass assault. A 17-year-old male entered into a children's dance school in the seaside town of Southport in the northwest of England and proceeded to stab over a dozen children in the dance class. 3 young girls, Alice Da Silva Aguiar, age 9, BB King, age 6, and Elsie Stancombe, aged 7, were killed. 8 other children suffered knife wounds, 5 of whom are currently in very serious critical condition. It was without question one of the single worst acts of murderous evil committed against children ever witnessed in Britain's history. Within minutes of the attack, rumors began swirling that the alleged perpetrator was a migrant. And just that very suspicion alone caused Southport to explode. Now we're getting reports from British police that, based on their investigation thus far, they have concluded that this was a non-terrorist incident. Moreover, again, according to police, it turns out that the stabbings were not committed by an actual migrant. The perpetrators reportedly a British citizen born to Rwandan immigrants. Needless to say, given the tensions in Britain over deeply unpopular immigration policy that's flooded the nation with migrants over the last 14 years, many are very skeptical of such assessments, and their new Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, found that out directly.
How many more children have died in our streets, Prime Minister? How many more children? How many more children, Prime Minister? Are we going to do something? Time to change, Starmer. Come on, it's needed. How many more children? Is it mine next? Stand up for our children. Bye-bye. Got your photos, off you go. Make a real change, Prime Minister. Make a real change! Our children! Go away!
Found out my friend's 9-year-old daughter was killed.
Here's Reform Party leader Nigel Farage and his take on what's really going on.
Well, it's pretty horrendous. The third young girl has died as a result of the stabbings yesterday in Southport. I obviously join everybody in my horror at what has happened. I know the Prime Minister went to lay flowers and was heckled, and it shows you how unhappy the public are with the state of law and order in our country. I have to say there are one or two questions. Was this guy being monitored by the security services? Some reports say he was, others less sure. The police say it's a non-terror incident, just as they said the stabbing of an Army Lieutenant Colonel in uniform on the streets of Kent the other day was a non-terror incident. I just wonder whether the truth is being withheld from us. I don't know the answer to that, but I think it is a fair and legitimate question. What I do know is something is going horribly wrong in our once beautiful country.
Something is going wrong in our once beautiful country. That's a not so subtle call to make Britain great again, or make Great Britain great again. Now, of course, the legacy media right on cue is reporting that these protesters, these riots are all, quote, far right. That's right, the Kamala-loving media. The media that is currently fawning over the very VP that they were trying to get Joe Biden to dump mere months ago because she was so pathetically unpopular. Yeah, that media, the same media that for 3.5 years lied to us about Joe Biden's senility every single day. Yes, that media is now labeling these protesters far-right extremists who are exploiting this stabbing for their own xenophobic, racist, Islamophobic purposes. But obviously there is nothing far right, nothing extreme, nothing radical about protesting the senseless, brutal murder of children. And the outrage stems more from the fact that more and more citizens of the UK, rightly so, feel as if their government officials are simply deaf to their concerns. No matter how much they voice their opposition to government policies, particularly those involving mass immigration, no matter how much they make those concerns clear, those concerns are routinely and blatantly dismissed by an out-of-touch political elite. We have to remember that over the last 14 years, under Tory rule to boot. This is why they just got so punished a couple of weeks back. But over the last 14 years, Britain was subject to a mass migration that the vast majority of Brits wanted nothing to do with. They never voted for it. They never voted for it. They were told by the Tories that they would stop immigration. Voters never voted to collapse their borders. In fact, it was quite the opposite. That's exactly what the Brexit vote was all about. Restoring their national sovereignty and protecting their borders from mass migration being forced upon them by the bullies in Brussels and the EU. And yet, here we are, with Britain seeing the single greatest mass surge in real numbers of mass migration over the last decade than they've ever seen in their history. And they don't want it. So all of this is to say that Britain's aloof politicians have created the very conditions that provoke these kind of protests in the first place. And then they turn around and they blame it on the effing far right. Talk about scapegoating. Now, when all is said and done, what's ultimately driving these protests is not far right, radical right, extremist politics. It's actually something very mainstream that scholars call post-security politics. I wrote about this phenomenon back in 2018 in my book, The New Nationalism. Post-security politics describes the kind of political reactions that happen when the three basic securities that are supposed to be guaranteed by the nation state, border security, economic security, and cultural security, all erode under the pressures of globalization. So globalization, of course, has eroded border security primarily through getting rid of borders and opening up Europe in general and the UK in particular to mass migration. Globalization has eroded economic security with something called a global division of labor, where manufacturing and factory jobs are shipped out to the global south. And globalization has eroded cultural security by recasting a nation's culture, customs, and traditions as now bigoted, racist, and all kinds of phobic, along with the radical demographic changes happening through globalism's propensity towards open borders. And so these post-security concerns form a self-reinforcing loop. And what we're seeing here is that more and more populations feel radically insecure and vulnerable and unsafe, all as they see their culture and their distinct ways of life crumble right before their very eyes, and their politicians refuse to do any effing thing about it. It's worse. They're making it worse. They're only making it worse. They're not stopping it. They're only making it worse. So that's why there are a number of scholars, like Matt Goodwin out there is wonderful. They're saying that when all is said and done, the protests in South Park, they're just the beginning. The failed policies of globalism are indeed going to face a very terrible and fierce reckoning.
What I get from this is that the media truly does not want us to know this is happening all over the world, not just with our borders, but borders all over the world. And it's creating chaos, and the government are not stepping up. Typical. Just like Ronald Reagan said, the worst things you want to hear, or what you should fear the most, is, hey, I'm from the government, I'm here to help. That means run. There's just so much radical stuff going on in this world, it's hard to keep up. Have you heard what's going on in Venezuela? Better go check that out. You know, they're not happy about their election results. Wow. I'm telling you, the world is on fire. It really is. Don't get me started. Notice I didn't say anything about the Olympics. Unbelievable. And I love the Olympics. And I was looking so forward to getting good information on France and the culture and the lifestyle and all the little neat cities that they portray, and just the world coming together for a sports event and the opening ceremonies. That's all I got to say. So the next little piece I have, and my last piece, is I brought up, I found an old piece, not that old, from Tucker Carlson. And again, it's how the media brainwashes us into believing what their narrative and why we must listen to them. I'm telling you, the media is corrupt and it's run by a few select people. Open your eyes, folks. That's the elusive truth. Just keep looking for it. It's right in front of you. So here it is, Tucker Carlson.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. You can be forgiven if the events of the last month caught you by surprise, you didn't expect them. You'd become used to dismissing the American left out of hand as a joke, because they are. Since the day Donald Trump was inaugurated, the Democratic Party has been helplessly disorganized and totally ineffective as a political party. They wasted years chasing invisible Russian agents and then making weird and unintelligible sounds about something called Ukraine. It's still not clear what they meant by that. Their entire political strategy was bizarre, and in the end, it was counterproductive. It hurt them with voters. They went down in the polls. Only buffoons do that in politics. These people couldn't organize your kid's birthday party. They didn't make their beds this morning. And yet, suddenly, out of nowhere, they roared back and took over the country. They did it in less time than it takes most people to go on spring vacation. What happened? How'd they do that? Well, it's simple. Nobody stopped them. There was no opposition to their power grab. The other side surrendered on day one without a fight. The rest of us watched all of this with our jaws hanging open in shock. It was the opposite of what we expected. Millions of people regularly vote for the Republican Party precisely because they would like someone to protect this country from the crazed ideologues who seek to destroy it. There are many of them. We're watching them on television now. There's not really another reason to vote Republican, unless you happen to be one of those rare people who wants more pointless foreign wars and enjoys sucking up to banks. Most people don't. You vote for Republicans to protect you from this. But when the moment of crisis came, Republicans ran away. Major American cities were looted and burned on television. Citizens were beaten and murdered. Works of public art were destroyed by the score. America's history, those shared experiences that bind us together as a nation, was plundered and completely rewritten by illiterate vandals. Everywhere as they watched, Americans were afraid. Afraid not simply for their safety, but afraid for their jobs, their reputations, afraid for their families. Many Americans were fired abruptly in the middle of a severe recession, doomed to ruin, for nothing. For saying the wrong thing, looking the wrong way, liking the wrong tweet. That happened. It's happening now. Some of the accused were so terrified they denounced their own families, wife, brother, daughter. In the end, they were destroyed anyway, because that's what happens in purges. You're destroyed anyway. Most Americans assume they would never live to see a moment like this, but they have. It's still going on. And the question that hangs in the air is, where are our protectors? At the height of the riots, the president of the Heritage Foundation, that's the nation's single largest conservative think tank, it has consumed billions of donor dollars. The president of Heritage wrote an op-ed accusing America of being irredeemably racist. Her name is Kay Cole James. You probably have sent her money. As America burned, Kay Cole James, president of the Heritage Foundation, piled on. And she wasn't alone in that. So many on the right did exactly the same thing. Meanwhile, they did nothing. They didn't lift a finger to help the people they had promised, they had pledged to protect, their voters and their donors. Instead, they did everything possible to accommodate the demands of the people tormenting them, the rioters, and the people who back the rioters. Congressional Republicans decided to make reining in law enforcement their top legislative priority. They blamed the cops. They didn't blame the rioters, they blamed the cops. Then Republicans bragged about springing more criminals from jail. The last thing we needed. In the state of Iowa, the Republican governor announced that she was giving felons the vote by executive order, not even waiting for the election, just doing it, signing it. Meanwhile, almost everywhere, ordinary Americans came under attack for the color of their skin. Acts of actual racism, where people were being hurt for their race, something they can't control, something they were born with. And yet no Republicans rose to defend them. Republicans refused even to defend the principle of equality under the law, the foundation of this country, the most important thing we have. Not defended. Really, in the end, the only people who gained anything in the revolution were the ones waging it. Our leaders, very much including our Republican leaders, shamefully, were focused on meeting their demands. So what should we conclude from what we just saw? The message, unfortunately, could not be clearer. Voting is for fools. You vote, you put these people into office with your votes, and in return, they patronize you. And when it matters, they abandon you. They have contempt for you. You know they do. You can smell it. It's obvious. Voting doesn't work. But when you riot and you burn things and you hurt people, you get a very different response. When you do those things, our leaders snap to attention. They tiptoe around your feelings, as Republicans are. They give you what you want, as Republicans are. Rioting works. That's the message they're sending. Think about that. It's the most dangerous possible message you can send because it guarantees more violence. You've got to wonder how all of this would have played out if Barack Obama was still president. Let's say it was the summer of 2011, right before Obama's re-election campaign started in earnest. Imagine if at that politically critical moment, violent mobs of Mitt Romney supporters began looting and burning major American cities, screaming racist slogans as they did it. Hard to imagine, but try. Imagine if the Romney mob then defaced and tore down statues of Martin Luther King in public parks. Imagine if every street sign in America identifying a Martin Luther King boulevard was suddenly ripped to the ground and defaced with graffiti. Most Americans would find that appalling and disgusting. We certainly would. But let's say the mob kept doing it because nobody stopped them. Imagine if the people who planned to vote for Barack Obama in the fall knew they couldn't admit that in public. If citizens wearing Obama hats were physically assaulted, punched in the face, thrown to the sidewalk, and kicked. Imagine if anyone who spoke out against the mobs or showed support for Obama's campaign was censored or deplatformed by tech monopolies that operated at the pleasure of federal regulators. Imagine if those same monopolies censored President Obama himself. So ask yourself sincerely, if all of that happened, how do you think Barack Obama would have responded? By tweeting angry things? By effectively apologizing to the mob, meeting their demands for, quote, reform, and then declaring a new national holiday at their request? No, probably not. It's hard to imagine Barack Obama doing that. It's hard to imagine him complaining that as president of the United States, he didn't have the power to stop political violence, or preserve the integrity of an election, or protect free speech, or public art, or the nation's history itself. No, that would not happen. Instead, within about 10 minutes, you would see the Obama Justice Department indict every single person involved on federal conspiracy and civil rights charges. You would watch as SEAL Team 6 reclaimed downtown Seattle. You'd see airborne units drop from the sky into Atlanta, Minneapolis, and Portland. You would see whatever it took to stop the chaos. That revolution would not last long. Say what you will about Barack Obama, and we do, but he never doubted he had the constitutional authority to act, and he did act. Obama knew a threat when he saw one. Our Republican leaders don't believe they have the authority. They don't believe they're legitimate. They don't see the threat. They don't want to see the threat because they know they can't face the mob. They know they're too weak. And so they offer trinkets and hope the mob will go away, but it won't. Mobs can't be sated. We thought Republicans understood that. That's why we supported them. But crisis has revealed the truth. Now we know who they are. It could not be clearer. And now it's time to find new leaders. Topics under discussion, of course, the riots in the Pacific Northwest and around the country, foreign policy, Russia, China, North Korea, pipelines, all compelling, all things that are covered widely in the news. But at the same time in this country, there are a lot of things that don't get a lot of coverage. At this moment, the most compelling voice against abortion and Planned Parenthood is not a Republican. The most widely heard Christian evangelist in America is not ordained. Instead, he is a rapper married to a Kardashian, who, by the way, everyone says is crazy. Kanye West is running for president, but that's not really the headline. The headline is that on core conservative issues, not political issues like legislation before the Congress, but on foundational questions about life and children and what happens when you die, no one with a national platform has been more honest or sincere or effective than Kanye West has been, maybe in generations. It's all pretty shocking, really. Talk about an unlikely messenger. But it's real. Check out West's Twitter feed if you haven't seen it. Not everything he says is conservative, far from it. Not everything he says is even intelligible. But when West talks about his faith and about the gift of human life, you start to ask yourself, why aren't there any elected Republicans who sound like that? They say they believe the same things, but if they actually do, why don't they talk like Kanye West does? And the answer, of course, is because they're afraid to. But West is not afraid. He doesn't have to be. He's too famous. He's made too much money. He sold something like 150 million albums over the past 20 years. And really, it's hard to cancel a guy like that. So what does the left do in response to Kanye West? How do you make Kanye West shut up? The short answer is you can't, so you work to discredit him. You go ad hominem. You ignore what he's saying. You attack him as a person. You don't engage with his ideas. You know you would lose if you tried that. So instead, you try to keep people from listening to him. It's an easier job when you're dealing with less famous people. Thanks to our centrally controlled internet, the left can usually silence dissent in an instant with the press of a button. But with prominent wrong thinkers like Kanye West, censorship requires a finer touch, more artistic flair. When the author J.K. Rowling had the gall to note that biological sex is a physical reality, not just a state of mind, Google couldn't simply wipe her off the internet. She's J.K. Rowling. She created Harry Potter. So the left had to destroy her more methodically. One British news site compared Rowling to the anti-Semite Richard Wagner and then dismissed her as, quote, deeply unpleasant. So multiply that attack by hundreds of stories, and over time they are confident, and maybe they're right, that no one will ever listen to J.K. Rowling again. In Kanye West's case, they decided to attack him as mentally ill. You hear that a lot now, but it's a relatively new tactic. It was just a little over 4 years ago that CNN published a piece about Kanye West. They highlighted his most famous moments, like the time he interrupted Taylor Swift at the MTV Video Music Awards. CNN described all these incidents as, quote, controversial. But there was no mention of Kanye West being a danger to himself, much less mentally ill. No, just controversial, not a problem. And then West appeared to say something positive about Donald Trump, and everything changed in an instant. Kanye West became a babbling lunatic, the kind of guy who pulls imaginary insects out of the air and soils his own pants. A total nutcase. Watch.
Kanye West's event on Sunday, and you saw, at least I saw a man clearly in trouble.
We met David Bowen, a Democratic state representative, earlier this summer. Bowen telling CNN, it's sad to see a popular music artist like Kanye be used as a pawn to trick his own people and fans.
So new questions this morning about Kanye West's mental health after this tweet storm and so-called campaign rally.
You see that ignorance and asinine thought and behavior has been something that's risen to the top.
Whether a clearly vulnerable Mr. West is being used to try to siphon votes away from Joe Biden.
They're sad. They're concerned. He's in trouble. Oh, it's all so fake. The feigned concern, the oily fake empathy. Kanye is vulnerable, right? These people are actually worried, but they're not worried about Kanye West or his family. They don't care about them. They're worried about the threat that West poses to Democratic Party orthodoxy and therefore to their power. They don't say that out loud. They're liars. So instead, they continue to play the role of psychiatric nurse. Here's the guy whose job it is to get drunk on camera on New Year's Eve, letting Kanye West know that he's embarrassing himself and his dead mother.
What I saw was a minstrel show today. Him in front of all of these white people, mostly white people, embarrassing himself and embarrassing Americans, but mostly African Americans. And now all of a sudden, he is the person who represents the African American community. He doesn't. This was an embarrassment. Kanye's mother is rolling over in her grave.
He's defiling the memory of his mother. It's sad. You'll notice that this group of cable news mental health experts may be deeply concerned about Kanye West, and yet for all of their apparent medical training, somehow they don't appear to notice that Joe Biden can no longer speak English. Joe's fine. He's not embarrassing anyone. Kanye West, by contrast, is deeply embarrassing to them, mostly because he's embarrassing to the Democratic Party. Here is someone who should be a Democrat calling out the most absurd lie that party tells. We care about black lives. That's why we want more abortion clinics in black neighborhoods. That's their position. It is insultingly stupid, and anyone who thinks about it knows that. When you love your kids, you want them to grow up and have children of their own. It's the main thing you want. But if your most consistent message to your children was, please end your pregnancy, they might start to wonder how you really felt about them. And Kanye West has started to wonder about that and things like that. Last month on Twitter, West wrote that he had, quote, cried at the thought of aborting my firstborn. I'm concerned for the world that feels you shouldn't cry about this subject. That's for sure. It's obvious. But when Kanye West says it, people might actually listen to him. And that's a massive problem for the left. Here he is last month.
My mom saved my life. My dad wanted to abort me. My mom saved my life. There would have been no Kanye West because my dad was too busy.
When was the last time you heard someone famous say something like that in public? Let's see, never. And then West went on to point out some of the more inconvenient facts that the progressive left wants you to forget. Quote, over 22,500,000 black babies have been aborted over the past 50 years, West tweeted. See, the media said, he's not well. Pray for him. Of course, what West said was factually true. What's also true is that Planned Parenthood was founded by someone who wanted fewer black people. That's why she founded Planned Parenthood. Her name was Margaret Sanger, and she once wondered aloud about the appearances of, quote, exterminating the Negro population, end quote. It's disgusting. You can find that on Google. West has. He knows it. And learning it clearly made him rethink his worldview. Here he is from a couple of years ago.
One of the moves that I love that liberals tried to do, the liberal would try to control a black person through the concept of racism because they know that we are very proud, emotional people. So when I said I like Trump to like someone that's liberal, they'll say, oh, but he's racist. You think racism can control me? Oh, that don't stop me. That's an invisible wall.
Oh, no wonder they hate him. Now, to be clear, Kanye West is not a normal person. And we're not saying he is. He has said out loud he sometimes suffers from something he calls a sprained brain. We're not sure what that is. We're not pretending to be mental health experts, and maybe Kanye West is crazy. We don't know. But it's also true, and wise people know this, that at a time like this, a lunatic time, sometimes it is only the crazy people who can see the world clearly.
There's so much to take in on that. Thank you, Tucker Carlson. That was crazy. Telling you people, it's right in front of your faces. So with that, I'm going to end the show. It's quite long. Sorry about that, but there's a lot to say, and we still didn't say hardly anything. I want you to go out there and look for the elusive truth yourself, and all you have to do is go to YouTube. Hate YouTube. Rumble's better. Odyssey's better, but that's, again, it's opinionated. I want you to look these people up on the YouTube. They have good things to say, and you might learn something. I want to thank the Rubin Report, Dr. Steve Turley, Fox News, Modern Renaissance Man, Forbes, Right Side Broadcasting, Sky News Australia, Lou Valentino, LV Nation, Tucker Carlson, Tim Cast, Tim Pool, Cash Jordan, Benny Johnson. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of good information out there to help you make a good common horse sense. So with that, folks, I want you to take care of each other, take care of yourself. That's the only way we're going to get through this. We have to band together and take charge of our lives. Keep looking for them higher frequencies and higher vibrations. And yes, I will have Gary on the next show. In about a week's time, we got a SETI. And hopefully we see some crazy alien activity and just supernatural stuff. And more importantly, just to get away from this rat race that we're in. Unbelievable. Clown world, circus world. Wow. Anyway, thanks for listening. God bless. We love you. Take care, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.